It's natural to be worried in extreme circumstances. The Israelites, with their backs to the sea and the Egyptian army in hot pursuit, were understandably worried. Moses was working overtime to calm them, and so God stepped in and told them to simply walk forward into the sea. So we shouldn't be worried about being worried, because with all their worry, the Israelites still went through the sea in fine form. And after they emerged and the Egyptians drowned, they sang the magnificent song at the sea. But it wasn't just the Egyptians that Israel ended up against in this week's Torah reading. At the end, they were set upon by another group, the Amalekites. And this was a different kind of battle, and the differences are stark and remarkable. First of all, they sang after Egypt drowned in the sea, but they did not sing after Amalek was defeated. Why not? Secondly, after the Amalek battle, Moses built an altar and named it Hashem Nisi, God is my banner. There was no altar built after the splitting of the sea. Why not? Thirdly, who fought the battles? It was God exclusively who destroyed Egypt at the sea, but it was the Israelites, led by Joshua, who defeated Amalek. Why the difference? Why God fighting at the sea and Israel fighting against Amalek? And to strengthen this question, let's note that the Torah calls this Amalek fight, quote, Milchama laHashem ba'Amalek midor dor. It's God's battle against Amalek from generation to generation. If it's his battle, why did he not fight it as he did against Egypt? And one more question. When Israel emerged from Egyptian slavery, the shortest route to the Holy Land would have been through the area of the Philistines. But God told Moses to lead them through the desert, lest they see war on that Philistine route and run back to Egypt. But wait a second, just a few days after they crossed that sea, they were attacked by Amalek, so they saw a war, and they did not run back to Egypt. What had changed? So it's clear what had changed. Israel had gone through the sea and witnessed Egypt drowned. This was a major transformation. Now, some rabbis have noted that the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, achieved their highest character level after being tested by water, being forced, as it were, to pass through water, specifically. Somehow passing through a test of water makes a permanent spiritual gain to the one who is so tested. Let's start with Abraham. We have a charming custom on Rosh Hashanah called Tashlich, where we recite some prayers near a body of water. What's the source of this custom? So the Midrash tells us that Abraham was on his way with Isaac to do the binding of Isaac, and the Satan had created a stream to block him and prevent him from fulfilling that unique command. Abraham persevered, and the merit of the binding of Isaac remains with us for all time. Isaac's test with water relates to the wells that he dug. He had just left the area of the Philistines, and he started digging wells, but each time the Philistines came and stopped up those wells. So he retreated further and dug more wells, until finally one well was uncontested, and that well was named Rehovot. That was his test. And Jacob was tested with water when he returned to the land of Canaan. At night, he had crossed over a stream called the Yabok, Ma'avar Yabok, and then he found himself alone, struggling with a mysterious angel until dawn. He prevailed against that angel and emerged from that battle with a new name, Yisrael. Each of these three tests was significant and different, and I believe that the Israelites in Egypt withstood those same tests as well. The rabbis tell us that in Egypt, the nation of Israel maintained their dress, their language, and their names. And I believe that this fact that they kept those three things signifies the success of the patriarchs in passing their water tests. Let's look at each one in turn. Abraham's water test was sent by the Satan, the evil inclination. Abraham had a good material life, and now he had a son which promised him the future. The evil inclination said to him, "Why are you going to go do this sacrifice? Stay home, don't follow the command." But Abraham powered through that water, thus sealing his devotion to God and his defeat of the evil inclination. Egypt was a place ruled by the evil inclination. We see sexual immorality in the story of Potiphar's wife and in the biblical exhortation to not perform the immoral acts of Egypt. So when Israel refused to change their clothing, refused to give up their modesty and fall into the pit of Egyptian abandon, they reinforced Abraham's legacy. Isaac, he confronted hatred, anti-Semitism. And he could have said, boy, they hate me so much, why go on being different? But he refused to give up being different. He dug another well, and another one, until it worked. He sealed his commitment to being Jewish, even in a hostile world, when he dug the well called Rehovot. The Egyptians hated the Israelites as well, but the Israelites refused to change their language, because language represents the identity of the people. They would forever be Israelites, speaking like Israelites, with faith, with kindness, no matter what the haters might try to get them to do. And thirdly, Jacob's struggle was within himself, a struggle to find self-confidence. He was always afraid. He was terrified of Esau. He was terrified of many different things. And he struggled with it all night long. And when he finally triumphed over that angel, he gained the name Yisrael, which means that you have now become ascendant. And his self-confidence soared and became part of his identity for the rest of his life. The Israelites did not change their names in Egypt. They didn't try to become Ramses or Seti or Beauregard. No weak knees. They were proud, confident Jews with Hebrew names. So, as for Israel, crossing the sea sealed in them their holiness, their unique identity, and their self-confidence. Now they can confront Amalek, and they won't run back to Egypt. And Amalek objected to all of those three things. This was now a new people capable of great things. But why no song after the Amalek victory? And why, yes, song after the Egyptian drowning? Actually, why did Egypt need to be drowned at all? Israel had left Egypt. They were free now. What more was necessary? That's simple. There is no way that Israel could truly be free if they knew that the Egyptians who had oppressed them, who had brutally tortured them and committed every crime against them, were just going on with their lives as if nothing had happened. Eichmann Yamach Shemo cannot live out his days in South America in peace. And this is of cosmic importance. Is there justice in the world, and is there a judge to enforce it? You bet. God was demonstrating for the entire world that evil does not go unpunished. And that is a great joy to all decent people everywhere, including today. And that's why God himself had to fight that battle and drown the Egyptians. And that is why Israel sang such a glorious song. Because a world where good is rewarded and evil is punished is a world to be celebrated. It gives all decent people hope. Indeed, in that song, we see that the other evil nations quake in fear at the thought of Israel marching forward with God. And one of the nations that had that fear was Amalek. Amalek did not like the idea of God. Even though he may claim he just objects to the Jews, he's lying. If, for example, the Nazis, may their memories be blotted out, had felt that the Jews were just of evil beliefs, they could have taken away the Jewish children and brought them up to be Nazis, God forbid. But they didn't. They killed them. A world with 1.5 billion Muslims and 1.5 billion Christians is being driven crazy by less than 20 million Jews living and thriving. Why? The psalmist tells us why in Psalm 83. The nations plot to destroy the nation of Israel, hoping that its name will never be mentioned again. Quote, they plot in their hearts together, and they make a covenant against you with a capital Y. In other words, it's not the Jews that bugs them, it's God. The Jews just prove God's existence, and that he is a God of justice. That's not what they want to face. They think if they can somehow eliminate the Jews, then they will be free to live their depraved lives without fear. But Amalek does not always attack. Only when Israel is weak, and I mean spiritually. Immediately prior to the Amalek story, we find the Israelites complaining about the lack of water in a very bitter and almost, it sounds, heretical way at a place called Rephidim. And the rabbis pick up on that name, Rephidim, and they say in it a hint that the Israel's hands were becoming weak in Torah. Rafu Yedehem, Rephidim, Rafu Yedehem, their hands became weak from the Torah. Oh, wait a second. They didn't get the Torah yet. They haven't gotten to Mount Sinai yet. But they were on the way to get the Torah. And the bitter way that they were complaining about that lack of water indicated that their commitment to that mission, to marching on to Mount Sinai and receiving the Torah, was indeed wobbling. And that's exactly when Amalek attacks. And that's why Moses built an altar, the altar which he calls God is my banner, Hashem Nisi, to remind and strengthen the Israelites to march with determination on their mission throughout the world. Indeed, how did they cross the sea? When Nachshon ben Aminadav marched into the water up to his face, that's when the sea split. So when we march forward with determination and with God's name upon us, with his banner flaunting in the breeze, the Amaleks of the world retreat. Each time we win that battle, it's great, but there's always more to do. That's why we don't sing a song then, because it is far from over. This is God's battle in every generation. And it's God's battle that we have to fight, because when they attack us, they are attacking God. And God fought for us at the Reed Sea, I should say. So we fight for him throughout history in our spiritual and sometimes physical battles with Amalek. When we are together with Hashem, all the great things happen. May we see this speedily in our days.